It is clearly a nightmare for them. They've been in power 13 years. They've known about this for at least 5 years, probably the whole 13. And here we are now with more than 100 school and college buildings closed at the start of a new term. Critics say the government is to blame. Ministers, including Ms Keegan, have said it's not their responsibility, but they're working on it. And this is what the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, said yesterday.
Are you to blame for what's happening now? And do you want to apologise to parents and pupils?
No, I think that is completely and utterly wrong. Actually, one of the first things I did as Chancellor in my first spending review in 2020 was to announce a new 10-year school rebuilding programme for 500 schools. Now, that equates to about 50 schools a year that will be refurbished or rebuilt. And if you look at what we've been doing over the previous decade, that's completely in line with what we've always done, about 50 or so schools a year refurbished or rebuilt. That's what I announced as Chancellor in my first spending review.
So, civil servant called Jonathan Slater said that the Chancellor, a couple of years ago, had cut the school rebuilding budget and made it only apply to 50 schools, not 100. Who was the Chancellor? Rishi Sunak.
Yeah.
So
He's completely to blame for it.
Well, that's what it's looking like. What do you think?
Yes. Well, I don't know what I'm saying yes to, but he is to blame to it. Yes, definitely.
I'm saying, I'm agreeing with, well, I'm not agreeing with you, but I'm saying...
I'm not agreeing with him.
You said completely to blame. I said, that's the question. You said yes. So don't worry, you haven't got but you don't agree with that.
You mentioned something that she said yesterday, she doesn't even know, just about sums up the Labour Party.
But I think Georgie is the Labour Party, as far as I know.
Well, she's more left than I am. I'm right of Genghis Khan, I suppose. But Rishi Sunak, if I could blame him for it, I would.
You don't like him?
I do.
He's too left-wing.
He's unelected. He's a complete prune.
You liked Boris Johnson?
Not necessarily, but I would prefer anybody but Rishi. So
because he's a complete prune.
He's a complete prune in my ideas. He has got no idea how to run a business, let alone a country. But
well, he's made about 600 million, so...
Absolutely, that's nothing wrong. That doesn't mean he can run a country or a business. The problem is, you can't blame him because when the major report that came out in 1996, which said that you must inspect these buildings every year, especially if they're done here, and at least no later than 5 years, was all through the 10 years of Tony Blair.
I know,
and
but
nothing was done.
In 2021, this civil servant went to Sunak and
2021, that's only 2 years ago.
Yes, and he said, we have lots and lots of data that shows there's critical risk to life. And he said it was, it was there, the data really showed that this could really harm children, risk to life. And instead of doubling the number of schools that they're meant to renovate each year from 100 to 200, he halved it.
I agree with you on that.
So there was a moment where the data said
that.
We've got to act now.
But that is typical.
And he halved it.
All right, so it's the big question we're asking here is whether this is now curtains for the Conservative. They've had some bumpy moments, to say the least. They had the whole Boris Johnson Partygate thing. Then Boris Johnson went. Soon, obviously, Liz Truss was a difficult period, to say the least, 49 days. But this looks really bad. Can they save themselves? Michael in Hertfordshire, is this it? Is it game over now?
Oh, certainly. I think it's just another nail in the coffin. I think they were going to go anyway, but this has done it. Regarding the Secretary for Education, she's not setting a very good example to our young people of today. If she can't win an argument with with the English language without using foul language, it doesn't say much for her. I don't know where she was educated.
Well, that's what the point we were making is it's because she's Education Secretary, rather like if the Archbishop of Canterbury had dropped an F word or something during the coronation, you know.
You know he wouldn't do it, don't you? You know he wouldn't do it.
Well, you'd hope so, yeah. Maybe it'd been picked up by a microphone or so. I don't know. We're in the realms here. Thank you, Michael. Raymond in West Yorkshire, is it game over for the Conservatives, hit by a lump of concrete?
It should have been game over 10 years ago. Never mind. Most of these buildings were rectified during Thatcher to cut costs.
Rectified? What do you mean?
Modernised.
You mean they put the concrete in?
Yes.
Yeah, true. I mean,
the lady there was on about the length of building should be up for. The housing estate opposite me, they were going up to the second tier, and the whole side of the wall fell off.
Terrible. I mean, the Thatcher. If it was in the Thatcher years, they wouldn't have been looking at it 10 years later. So I think, but it was. I know it was 60s, 70s, 80s. It's a whole period. Raymond, do you sound like you've got some building experience? Have you?
Used to be a builder.
Right. I don't know how. I can just tell. So Tina's asking the reasonable question: what clown decides you make concrete stronger by injecting air into it?
Well, said the clown.
How does that even happen?
Buildings are only, when the house is built now, they're only guaranteed for 25 years.
Really?
Yeah.
I wouldn't buy a new build house, that's for sure.
Why?
I don't. Well, because they're all prefab, are they?
The Tories have cut the regulations and restrictions on building new buildings.
God, buy old. Isn't it weird with houses you've got to buy old?
Madness,
I have bought old.
You've bought old?
Yeah,
but people have lived
old.
in it, it's settled, it's there, it's not going to fall down. New build has so many problems. Thank you, Raymond. Great to have a builder on the line. I mean, this is, again, it's this part of the new world where everything is done rapidly.
I know, cheaply.
Yeah.
Not as
and
good.
of course, we do blame the tech expert for that. It's all done with wires.
It's all on your shoulders, you realise that.
Nothing to do.
Do you remember?
But that's what the educational secretary.
Well, exactly. Well, I'm not the educational secretary.
Gillian, do you go back as far as the sort of Thatcher government? No, I'm sure you don't. So, because that was the big thing that really hit her at the end was the poll tax, which she decided everyone must pay the same council tax wherever you are because you're getting the same services. So the famous thing of the dustman must pay the same as the Duke. That was curtains for her. John Major, I think it was back to basics that did him. Gordon Brown, subprime crisis.
The public wasn't. She was stabbed in the back by her own. The public were not. It wasn't her death knell as far as the public.
The party wanted her to do that thing of where you do with your computer, you unplug it and plug it back in again, and then they caused themselves some trouble with it. Lee is in Lisbon in Northern Ireland. Hi, Lee.
Hi, Jeremy.
We're just wondering if this is the.
My dog's just.
Are you okay? Bite him off. You're rolling around on the floor now.
Right, can you hear me now?
Cover your throat. That's the key thing. Yeah. I can hear you. Yeah. So, what was I going to say? Is this their poll tax moment?
I think it could be, yes.
So,
I really do. I think it's bad for Rishi. But also, as I said, my worry is, I mean, they are on about schools with this concrete, but how many other buildings have got this concrete in it?
Well, public buildings, courts, we're hearing, certainly hospitals. Thank you very much, Lee. What's your dog's name?
I've got two, Sadie and Rosie.
Right.
Sadie's just been
They're
killed.
both kicking off, yeah. Graham in County Antrim, hi, what do you think?
Well, Jeremy, hello, by the way.
Hey.
I think it should be the end for the Tories, and to be quite honest, I think the end of the Tories should have been before this, because let's face facts. 13 years they have been in power, and the country has went to pot.
Gone to pot, did you say?
Yes, it's gone to pot. I live in Northern Ireland, and we have a sort of vested interest in what happens in England.
Yeah.
And after Brexit, we have no government now. And that's partly down to that.
Yeah.
Because Boris Johnson stood in a warehouse in Belfast and lied to this entire country. And then, when he got into power, and Rishi Sunak and all now, they just constantly lie, and they're never pulled up on them.
But maybe, I suppose, the only I'm trying to think of a defence here. If you're a Conservative, you might say this country is ungovernable. Basically, the country voted for Brexit. Brexit was very hard to deliver, and we've had COVID, and we're just in a constant rolling state of chaos, Graham.
Yes, but to be honest with you, Jeremy, I'm a bit sick of this. It's COVID, it's a war in Ukraine, it's Brexit wasn't handled properly. They had the choice to handle Brexit properly, and they didn't do it because of the sheer incompetence in the cabinet. They're just. I mean, I remember I grew up in Margaret Thatcher, under Margaret Thatcher, but the thing was, she had intelligent people around her to stop her whenever she got too far. These people don't.
Thank you, Graham. Yeah, we've got a story later on about Gavin Williamson. Remember him? Chris in Manchester, hi.
Morning, folks.
Game over?
You took the words right out of my mouth. It's just almost a hospital pass every 5 years with the change of government, or whether there is or there isn't. We just need. This is a perfect opportunity. The Tories have been dead for a long time. I used to be a Tory voter 15, 20 years ago. We desperately need such radical change here, so we can have proper choice. You know, let's have 5 political parties. Now, that's not going to happen overnight. Probably won't even happen in my lifetime. But the country has never been, I don't think, more in need of a proper choice. Because at the moment, I think all people vote for is the worst of the top of the pile.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, with most things, Chris, there's only 2 positions. Either you do it or you don't. So there's only 2 parties for that reason. So one of them says build a road and the other one says no, let's not. And that's why the Lib Dems struggle to squeeze their way in. So I don't know, we've got room for 5 ideas now, particularly in a crisis like this.
Well, therefore, somebody's got to really step up and show some really, really strong leadership. Yeah. I mean, the people on the political fringes, people like Richard Tyson, Farage, and even someone like Peter Hitchens, who speaks a lot of sense for me. But he said many moons ago he wouldn't have a chance of getting anywhere near any of the political parties because they just shut him down. Because he's been asked to stand before. But he said, for which party? Because he doesn't support either. Well,
you may be right. Maybe the key thing is we're lacking decent people, because you look at the states where they've got a choice potentially between Trump and Biden. So,
worst position.
Well, I mean,
I don't think
I don't even.
Abysmal. Yeah, I don't hate him. I just think Tories have been in power for too long. We need a change. We need to mix things up, and they have, had repeated failures now, and this is the final nail on the coffin.
Well, the thing is, Brexit never was done. That's the whole problem. If somebody had been at the helm with the correct stamina.
Well, that's Boris Johnson, right? Boris Johnson was the one who was the cheerleader.
He was constantly being stabbed in the back because he would have eventually stood up, and that's what it needed, somebody to say, turn around, we voted to come out, this was the thing, and we are going to do it. And if the EU said, oh, you can't, he'd say, we're not within the EU now, and done it. And if they'd have fined us, we say, bring it on. So it needed somebody to carry out. That's the problem. The Brexit thing is half and half. So therefore, the people that Remainers
we've got a small vote crisis. I think that's down to the fact that the French don't want to cooperate with us. I don't think that's a way to ingratiate ourselves.
Let's just go for one more call. Let's just see what they think.
Yeah.
Mick in Corby, what do you think? Is this? We're just saying it's basically the government's been hit by a lump of concrete. It's it's curtains. They're just seeing stars now.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. I think we have to understand. We're trying to wipe out the history, Jeremy, a little bit here, because just after the war, when there's a baby boom, was various materials brought in, HAC, high aluminum cement as well, which were quick-drying cements, similar to this material as well. They had a lifespan on them, but they were built out of necessity. Yeah. Fire stations, police stations, town centres. And some of them still have it in my town. They removed quite a lot of it, Jeremy. Okay. So no matter what party would be in at this time, I think they'd all be going through the same thing.
Well, that's fair enough. It's just that if you've got to get out ahead of stuff when you're running the country, and they've had at least 25 years to think this is going to go from being a problem to being a crisis. Why don't we just get ahead of it? And in fact, in the end, it ends up the weekend before term starts. We're all suddenly closed down. So that's the problem, Mick, isn't it? It could have happened to anyone, but it happened to them.
I agree with you on that. There's been mistakes made, but many building controls in the area, in your area where you live, are aware of these types of construction.
All right. Mick, thanks so much.
Local authorities should have perhaps done something.
Maybe so. Maybe so. Well, it's a crisis now, that's for sure.